right. All right. Let's see. Okay. Yep. We are on. Okay. Welcome, everyone. We are recording the Many Hands podcast. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook, manyhandspodcast.com, the number one platform for business and social consciousness. So we have the crew. We call it the Orlando Cipher, right? So we create ripples, waves, beats, and more. So get in the Cipher with us. You'll see the development of this, of our core podcast and our team as everything goes on. So where are we going to start? I think we should start with some of the top news that we've had this week. So hasn't it been a crazy week, y'all?
It has.
Oh man, every week seems to be crazy, but
The year has been crazy.
And first of all, we haven't even hit the top of the first quarter, which is the crazy part. Bear with me 1 second. Stretch to come right into place. All right. So what's happened? We have the college admission scandal, which to me is berserk, and it just speaks to privilege and just selfishness, the negligence, all of that. We have R. Kelly, who was arrested for a second time in a couple weeks, and so this one was on his back child support. And sometimes you even want to know. What I found out with that is that he doesn't even own his publishing, so that's why it's been so hard for him to get out of jail. Okay, and is the real story his undiagnosed dyslexia and how American education has really failed our kids, and we produce these kind of monsters because they don't have a way out. So that's something to think about. You have Trump, who vetoed Congress's vote to stop the declaration of his so-called national emergency to get funds to build the border wall. All right, so then we have politics going back and forth. Democrats, I'm not going to give you money just so that you can say that you did it, even though they gave him what he asked for, but he wants it called a wall. They want it called a fence. It's crazy. He's calling national emergencies, and we know what a national emergency really can be. So we have that. Did you see Jussie Smollett walk to court with his entourage in shades?
Yeah, he walked in Boston.
Okay, that is disrespectful to the court system. Okay, so that's just one thing to think about there. All right. What else? Last month, we had a 6th grade boy arrested in Florida for refusing to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Did you see that? And he had actually, Jay-Z used his influence and clout and legal dollars to help him out. I think he would still be in jail. Apparently, the teacher who had him arrested didn't know that it's not illegal to do that. So, okay, that's crazy. We have Michael Jackson's unauthorized documentary, Leaving Neverland. You know, I'm an MJ fan, so digress on that. We had the mass shooting a couple days ago in New Zealand, and that makes you think, makes you realize how much domestic terrorism is on the rise because we have our own issues right here. And with these right-wing supremacists, they're really responsible for 74% of all of these type of tragedies. So that's one thing. Another thing to think about, we have right now 15 Democrats in the race for president. So we'll call that Democratic Zoo. And who's going to come out, all right? Think about that. And on a funnier note, Trump built a whole new golf simulator in the White House. Not because they didn't have one, but he didn't like the one that Obama left there.
Of course not.
Yeah, So the running joke is maybe he couldn't beat his high score. Sounds about right. Yeah, so that's the funny thing. So,
wrong.
So before we get into the main topic, I just kicked off a lot of news stories for the week. What grabs you guys the most? Anybody jump in here?
College admission scandal. It's so far-reaching and so crazy that not only do we see it happening and has it been happening, it's been 100 families involved in this, but it just speaks to the lengths at which people will go. They already have an advantage to give you more of an advantage.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing, because instead of making your children be better, let's find ways to circumvent it, to actually secure that, right? For them, right? Because again, already lost your family, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of you going to your children and saying, study more, work harder, it's okay. We know who they are. Let's make it easier. Do
you want to be thought of as for the rest of your life? Nobody would ever think that you're anything more than a cheater. So even if they straightened out their life, like to me, there's punishment in that. I think they should go to jail. But beyond that, they will always be thought of as cheaters, less than. They're never going to know their true potential because they're not at an age where they're finding you can forget and overcome. They're at an age where you remember everything, and it starts. Part 2 of your life really starts at 17, 18, 19 when college starts.
And 2 of the daughters were Drew for USC, right? With the billionaire's daughter, he's the chairman of the board of directors for USC, right? They're friends, but she actually left to go home because once the scandal broke, they thought it would be best if she was with her family. Good separation.
She should have been arrested the same way they arrested Felicity Huffman with the guns drawn at some odd hour of the night when you don't know they're coming. That's how full lights. Yeah. I need lights. I need all that. Full regalia. I need all of that. And that's what they deserve.
It's we're talking about privilege here, so I'm thinking about
like you just said, they're setting up their kids for failure, not success at all. It also shows that privilege, like what are we exactly the misuse of it versus doing something great with it. Absolutely. So we're not just cheating kids, we're just making the whole system. It's a mockery of everything.
I'm making a mockery, and something too that I thought about is, so yeah, they're doing all this for kids, but do their kids even care?
No.
Right? Because they just are like, well, my dad will just fix it.
That's my problem.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I look at they're talking about making kids athletes, young athletes. When kids are working so hard to get that scholarship, they gotta work so hard to get there. Just to say, oh well, you're on team somebody who what do you call it, superimpose or whatever, a picture on to somebody else's body.
Once they went through to show that they were athletes in high school.
It's crazy.
Yeah. The one young lady, the daughter who they call her on social media, she's the one, she has 2 million followers on social media. She has sponsorships and makeup, not anymore, right? These corporations are, again, self-preservation. These corporations separate themselves, right? But she went on and she was noticing, oh, I didn't come here to go to school. I didn't come here to play school.
She had no interest.
No, I came here to party. These are words out of her mouth that, as a parent, when you see that, what should your response be? Because I know if my parents saw that, oh, you didn't go there to play school.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, then,
That would have been a problem.
then you coming home, or you foot your own bill.
Yeah.
All right. But again, what accountability they have.
I also think it comes down to the parents being lost in self once they achieve success.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the backgrounds of the parents, their upbringing and so forth, but their kids have grown up privileged.
Right. Well, Lori Loughlin said on camera that she never had the opportunity to go to college. I don't know if she didn't have the opportunity or she didn't want to, because I remember between Full House seasons, she wasn't doing much. So she could have, okay? But she probably thought she was beyond that. So then you have the ego driving you. And she's been caught on camera saying that, oh, it's something that she really, really wants for her daughters before her daughter was college eligible, right? So you don't know where that external pressure was coming from. The daughter saying, this is not what I want. And you're saying, this is what you must have. And then I'm like this. One, I don't trust the sponsors that, because how do you know that they really disassociated themselves? How do you know there's not other things? Because she still has $2 million followers. So you have all that social media capital that, what are you going to do with? Let it go down the tubes? Do people still follow them?
And I wonder, did she lose some followers from that? I mean, I'm sure she had to lose.
Well, I don't think so. Because
those are who kids are following her, right?
Right.
Do they really care?
I don't think they have the moral compass that they should, because, it's really America's fault for raising them not to
Have one?
Right. To be aware, to care.
I go back and forth with that as far as if she's losing or gaining followers. As America, we love the juicy gossip. We love the negative. We feed off of that. So anything she has gained a few more followers. They're curious, who is that? I never heard.
Well, and plus even people are nosy enough to know just what's happening the next time.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And what is your bounce back ability for that?
I know that Hallmark dropped the mother, and dropped
the Hallmark channel, because she's had many.
Fuller House has dropped her now.
Is that right?
Yep, she's no longer affiliated with them.
But did they get renewed anyway? Were they coming back?
I think so.
I'm pretty sure. They've been doing very well.
I think so. But yeah, that was officially announced. I know yesterday, day before. I know I didn't hear that. But, again, those are the sponsors or the networks, but what behind the scenes stuff are they allowing her to do?
Exactly.
Right. So again, that goes back.
People follow them just because they want to know. They want to be first to know what happened. Because you ever think about it, well, so and so said this, but he's since deleted it from social media because people are just sitting there waiting for something to happen, and they're screenshotting, and that screenshot is between you and the check from TMZ, right? So you got to
go to Olivia Pope.
She's retired.
I know she is.
She's retired.
Hey,
and she didn't. And Jordan Woods would need her right
now.
They did her dirty. So it's kind of funny. So now we're really talking about Spoiled America, and it's kind of really piggybacking off of this college scandal. So we started it, so let's finish it. We can't leave the audience hanging with So what do you guys think about Jordan Woods?
I think she definitely was in the wrong. When I'm hearing about what happened, as far as the shaming that family is doing to her, giving her, I don't necessarily agree with that.
I think that she is the essence of Spoiled America culminated, because what would make her, you have best friends, of course, but what is making her chase that lifestyle to the point where you forget, what was instilled in you to do the right thing. Now to me, I feel like they've shamed her and they shouldn't. And I feel like Black women have come to her defense like they were defending their own children. And I hope that she remembers, because a lot of times we're a forgotten demographic, whether it's voting, whether it's entrance into schools, whether it's anything that creates equity in our environment. So that's pretty much a loss of a note that we have to keep playing so that it resonates. But where was she that she forgot, hey, let me do the right thing, or hey, let me chart my own path instead of piggybacking. And then now you're so caught up in an environment that, these people will turn on you like any rabid beast.
Absolutely. And I know she was on Jada.
Red Table Talk.
I didn't know that she was intertwined with their family as much as she.
Yeah, her dad was the lighting manager or something like that on Fresh Prince.
Yeah.
So I believe Mr. Will Smith is actually a godparent, or their godparent.
Yeah, because I think her father passed away at a young age.
Yeah, but thank God, because they trumped that part. Like, don't mess with our girl.
Yeah.
And if they did not do that intervention at that place, if she did not have their number to speed dial, we'd still be talking. We'd still be wishing on this person's demise. And the one thing that you don't pray for somebody's demise. You pray that you do better.
Yes.
But these people were after her.
They did take her down.
Right?
So her bounce back, ability is very strong.
But she got to capitalize. She got to do it right now.
And she has to.
But if you were taught as young America to invest in yourself, to build that's what we always say, build your tool belt. You never know when you're going to need this license, that license, this, that. She wasn't taught to build her tool belt that we see. Maybe she was. But this will be the right time to capitalize on it.
Sport America is caught up in the now. They're not caught up in what's 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
The work.
Right.
They're not caught up in the work.
Exactly.
Nobody
Nobody spoiled. It's all about instant gratification right now.
And that's what we are as a society. We want instant gratification. We talked about it before on, I think, other podcasts. But, excuse me. And with fast food, we got on-demand TV. We got TV on our phones. There's so much access
Social media
right now. Social media. You get your news from up to the minute on CNN or anything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And it really does release that chemical for addiction. People have found their likes like nobody's business. I'm like, what about the post? Maybe the post content was terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
Why don't you focus on your content? And it's like that with everything we do. Like we always say, chase the knowledge, the money will come.
Right.
But people aren't chasing that knowledge. They're just like, how do we circumvent the work to get whatever desired result?
What happened with America when they crashed it down for Instagram and Facebook?
It stopped.
People
It stopped. I'm not even gonna lie. I called me. I was like, something wrong with the gram? And he wasn't affected. So he's like, listen, I'm busy.
Right.
I didn't even know that until y'all just said.
What? Oh, you must work hard. 9 to 5.
I didn't even know to work.
No, it's so funny you say that because I really didn't know that until.
Went down for that. And the funny thing is, the next day, 2 Facebook execs, Facebook owns Instagram.
Yeah.
So 2 execs either stepped down or left the company for some reason. It makes you wonder, because every time there's something big that happens, especially technology-wise, they make somebody pay for the mistake, even if it's not their fault. Right. And I'm not even sure that this is what's happened. Odd timing. Yeah, so if I'm following the bouncing ball, and I'm wondering who had to take the blame for that, because now you have billions of users out, and that's money. What are we going to tell our advertisers? And they're and the scandal, their privacy scandal, started where they put they let these advertisers read your personal messages, your messenger, and all that sort of stuff. Oh, you want to know who's talking about Coca-Cola? We'll show you. And they're reading your email. So their advertisers, just like with any company, mean a lot.
You can directly market to those individuals.
Correct.
Giving you that access so you can see the marketability on the general marketplace.
And not only that, but they're also now not only marketing to you, but they're changing the way you think. They're in a sense, they're telling you what you need, but you don't think you need, but you need this. And so that's a whole other type of marketing, right? Because now they're changing your mindset, which once you get your mind, you kind of have access to everything, right?
Mindset is everything.
Yeah. Okay. It's powerful. That's why I say it every time.
Yeah, so tell me what you guys think. So my thing is, I'm wondering, where does this all come from? So I was really thinking about schooling. like what really shapes our minds. So you have, the external, the internal. So do you think our students, American students, are taught from varied perspectives or from a more so biased angle?
Biased angle. I think so.
How so?
I feel like this is the way schools are structured. They don't give specific guidelines to teachers depending on which school system they're in. I feel like teachers have more of a, I guess, free way of teaching to a degree.
It's like a generalized curriculum.
Right. I feel like they're allowing some freedom, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it can
It
go
depends on
either
the
way.
individual, right?
See,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't see that because I see a lot of the Common Core. This is how it has to be taught. This is what I also see a lot of Black history omitted, intentionally omitted.
Yeah.
I see a lot of support where they shouldn't necessarily have a vote on that level. But, like let's say that, Black America does not want to see known slaves as statues when I leave my house every day. And they say, well, that's part of history. Oh, it's a part of history now, but it's a part of history that he's a hero, so to speak, a war hero. But what was he fighting for and why? And they don't want to have that conversation.
So it was funny. I was listening to a book earlier today, and it talks about how when we speak on these known slaves, we don't really give the humanity behind them, right? Like what their true story was. We just talk about the slave aspect of who they are. But it never talked about the other things that they were either before that or after.
Like watch a documentary.
You really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to fully invest in that, which, going back to schools, right? We talk about, that's why, want to give a shout out to Blackish, right? They're I believe it was February 26th, the episode where they talked about different people in history, Black history, who we don't normally hear about. And I apologize for not having specific names because Octavia, she was on the show and she actually did specific people. And it was amazing because when I heard some of those names, yeah, I had heard them before, but I actually went and researched them to see more about them. And that episode exposed us to things that we would normally have. I wonder how many families actually sat down and watched that together.
It's a great show.
Because that's
nothing. People don't even watch. There's not enough programming that's family friendly.
Very true. Very true.
Because why? Because America likes
ratchet,
the
negative,
crazy stuff.
bad, anything to stir the pot.
People need to. I'm sorry. People need to realize reality TV is not real, right? It's very scripted, and it's focused on what they want you to see, the drivers that they have for you.
Exactly.
And we as society buy it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I was thinking. So my take on the education piece is, I feel like not only are they writing out parts of our history, but they're also just training us to be not robots, but they're training us to be workers, right? So they're not teaching. So now they're starting to teach entrepreneurship in different classes, in different schools. But I think by and large, like growing up, you were taught, do this, take this test, go to school, get a good job, and work.
30 years.
30 years.
That going
See, but it also comes into play the kind of work that they're training us to do. So it's like more desk work and all that. But there's no vocational training in terms of, like my dad is a union guy, a steam fitter. You don't see those skilled trades being taught anymore. The vocational schools get it. I even knew a guy, he owned 3 mechanics garages down here. He even went to the schools to recruit, and he could not find qualified people. No, even when they graduate, he's like, most times you learn on the job, but it was such a disparity between what he had to teach them and the basic knowledge.
Right.
And what's funny is I think there was a narrative spun about that, in that instead of working with your hands, being a skill trade, because look, everybody, college is for everybody, right? You put a stigma on it, and so kids
like it wasn't good enough.
Right. Like I remember when I was in high school, Vo-Tech that's where the bad kids go. That's where the kids
exactly
go, problem kids go.
Yeah.
Instead of those kids can go there and learn how to be something.
Right.
And
the math that it takes to be a good carpenter or, machinist.
Yeah.
You can't find them anymore.
And that's what we talked about, these schools that we wanna all be involved with, right? Starting out these charter schools, giving these kids options early in life. Everybody does not fit the mold for college, right? And it's not to discourage that. It's just to give options. That's the key. A lot of these kids are, well, college is the option. If I go to college, what am I going to do? Well, hey, let us help you.
It's seen as a society norm.
Yeah.
You're supposed to, I was going to school, go to college, get married, get it in, and just have. Like,
If anything comes out of that norm, if you have any outliers, then you might throw your life away.
Right.
You're like, wait, what?
You're a failure.
But I'm a person.
Right.
To your point, there's a story behind who I am, and that knowing a little bit more about somebody kind of help them navigate this life. So how do you think the rest of the world views Americans when it comes to spoiled America?
Spoiled Americans. I feel like I feel like other countries, just the remainder of the world, are laughing at us. To be honest with you, it's they're seeing all the stuff that's on the news. I mean, our president, we're kind of a laughing stock.
Yeah. See, and media is biased both ways, right? Mm-hmm. But it was just, I think you told me today that Ethiopia said that they would not release the Boeing 737s that came down. They won't release the black box because to us, not that they won't release it, they won't release it to us because of a trust. So I think it's a lot of mistrust that goes on, and
that's the problem, right? The rest of the world used to want to emulate the U.S., right? That was the key.
Right.
Now it's like,
And we're starting to tell, we've always been we're a superpower, or this is right, so we're going to punish, like Cuba and put sanctions because they're not living the way we want them to live, and we don't want communism to spread. Well, it's their right to govern the way they want to govern, and we have to, be careful of that. But
we're a cocky nation. We're a cocky nation.
Yeah. That's super. And so, and that we used to be feared, and now we're fearful. Mm-hmm. So that's what's guiding the dialogue with like North Korea, because like, oh, you got them too?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Everybody has nuclear. Not everybody, but most of the superpowers have nuclear.
And I feel like we're being led as a country by fear, right? So to your point, where, instead of being Americans staying up with their chest out, now it's like, oh, well, don't look at those folks or that group or this group, or we can't let this group come here because they're going
to things. So what ifs?
Or what ifs. But what we're not talking about, well, some people are talking about, right? But a lot of the things to be afraid of are perpetually being done by those that want us to be afraid.
Yes.
Well, we're not able to lick our own wounds. We're not able to have conversation, that is going to actually display some of the issues that we have. Like you guys were around for 9/11. You remember that feeling? And it was for a moment that it felt like patriotism replaced racism. Because you were like, we're American. We were like, oh. Yeah. And then the rude awakening came back that you're still Black in America. Yeah. And it's different rules. Mm-hmm. But in order for us to be respected anywhere else, we have to be united, and we have to have that sense of, we have to be accepted as fellow patriots to operate as fellow patriots. And I think all of that is heading our demise.
You hit that right on the head. We only come together during the time of tragedy. And then it's from there, it's like after a few weeks or so, then it's all forgotten.
It's very short-lived until the next tragedy, dependent upon the tragedy, right? So that's the one thing that, yes, if 9/11 was horrible, but you did see people. It was the best parts of people come out and come together, and that was the great part about it. Even though it was such a horrible tragedy,
but it's sad it takes something like that.
Yeah, I mean hurricanes. In the Midwest, these tornadoes are popping up like crazy now. Somebody the other day was telling me about bomb cyclones in the Midwest that the rescuers had to be rescued. Like snow and rain. Like these are things that are crazy to me now. Why they're happening now? These things that we haven't heard of before, or maybe they were happening and.
They were happening. I think they're starting to happen, and I think they're getting worse.
Yeah.
Well, there's a denial of weather patterns.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we wouldn't even be able to combat it.
So we can accept that. We're just going to continue to see these get worse and worse. And
it's the vibe with global warming and the acceptance and understanding of it. Exactly. Well, it doesn't exist, or
it's very political, and it shouldn't be, because I'm like, science is we're nerds, right? We were just excited about just being nerds. So we're nerds, and I'm like, are you telling me the science is wrong? Like, that blows my mind.
I mean, they're showing it to you, right? Hey, it's this. This is what's going on.
No, it's not.
No, wrong.
16 years on record,
Mm-hmm.
or 15 years on record, happened in the last 16 years.
Yeah, but
So,
like our president wanted the votes of like coal workers or anything like that. So he didn't want to talk about, natural energy solutions or anything.
Right.
And he got the votes.
He's also, well, let me not speak on it.
Yeah, I'm trying to not really get into him at all.
Yeah.
Want to stay happy.
Yes.
So we're going to stand a little bit on how America is viewed. So my sister, she lives in London, where she was born and raised, and so she had part of her home she rents out on Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked her, she's like, how is everybody when they come in? She goes, oh, it kind of depends on where they're from,
Mm-hmm.
So she said most people would bring like a little gift. They don't have to, of course. They bring a little gift from their country. Hey, this is our local tea. Everyone loves it.
awesome.
Yeah. Or this is what the children play with when they grow. You know what I mean? So you kind of have a cultural immersion. And so she gets to learn a lot about people. And I think that's fascinating. But I was like, well, how are Americans when they go over? She's like, well, they don't really bring anything, but they're very huggy. They're like, oh, hug. Thanks for letting us stay. So, we're also, we're not known to be great tippers. There's a lot of things that go into it. But it just made another point on how people see us, how we treat others,
When I was in Europe, this was 2005, cab driver asked a question. So a friend of mine asked the cab driver a question. He said, hey, how do you feel about America? And he started going in. And I had to explain to him very politely that, hey, I'm an American. I can say those things, you can't.
Yeah.
Okay? Please be mindful, because I won't come here and bash, and it was funny because he said, well, you asked. And I was like, he's right.
But I think other countries tend to be more honest with feedback. Like, we like to mask our feedback. Because don't forget,
a little bit,
exactly my point. We're hypersensitive. You can't say anything how you feel, or like you'll be shunned. And if you don't agree with the mainstream, you are every bad name out there.
Yeah. It's back to molding people and molding their minds and
so where's our morality? If you can't stand up for what you believe in, where's your moral compass?
Well, I think, and I don't know if this is an intentional plan, but it's almost like they don't want us to have a moral compass. What you see is now we're in almost chaos a little bit, right? With just the shootings and the cops killing people left and right, killing black folks left and right, black men, black boys. I have two small children that I have to raise in this chaotic society. And so we have to work and instill the right values in them, because society is not going to do it for us.
Mm-hmm.
I want to just go back real quick to when you talked about the documentary, right? Or the unapproved Michael Jackson documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't approved by his people, his family, right? So it was funny. DL has been out in the recent weeks talking about R. Kelly and Michael Jackson and DL Hughley, and people are saying, well, do you still listen to their music? And he said, yes, I'm able to distinguish the music, which has gotten me through some really tough times, but has also allowed me to celebrate my life. I got married to Michael Jackson. He said, now, let's be clear, they're both horrible babysitters.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so yes, I'm not going to let my 7-year-old child, in a room with that, but I can enjoy their music.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to think about that for a while, because sometimes it was, R. Kelly song came on the other day and I turned the station and it's one of my favorites. Mm-hmm. And I next song.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, is that what we are now?
But look at, as a culture, we're so quick to, and we were talking about Jussie Smollett, right?
Yeah.
So as a culture, we're so quick to disassociate ourselves, because the truth of the matter is we don't have the financial power and capital holistically to elevate. So if you hurt your dollars on another level by supporting somebody that's not approved by the mainstream, where does that leave you future-wise? So there's still our brothers, there's still our sons. How do we take care of us? Because you know what? People are still supporting Woody Allen.
Yeah.
Okay. Harvey Weinstein movies are still out there. And I'm sure we could find something on, if we pulled it up on demand, we could find it. Elvis is revered. There's so many, I mean, the list goes on and on about, you know, people who were revered outside of the culture. But when it comes to our culture, we're like, bye.
DL said, the same way I can sing a Michael Jackson song is the same way I can sing the Star Spangled Banner.
Exactly.
People don't even know the original words to the Star Spangled Banner. And,
Exactly.
okay, and not a slave. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Mr. Key. Okay, who was a slave owner?
Yeah.
You know, so he was singing from his experience. We'll say that lightly.
So that brings me to a point of, you know, we have to stop doing things when it's convenient and again,
Popular.
Stand on a moral compass, right? Stand on some sort of level of morality and say, look, I'm not going to sing Star Spangled Banner. I'm not going to listen to R. Kelly, or do it, right? Whatever your preference is, but you can't pick and choose again.
But pick people up. If there are certain cultures that are willing to keep their statues up and in your face, even though they did wrong because of history, how could we deny people who have contributed to this country on a level of art that has changed the world?
Yeah.
Some of these songs have saved people's lives at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
I feel like, well, this is definitely my art. So we're talking about a moral compass, and we're talking about speaking your mind and not going to knowing the mainstream. I feel like we will learn a whole lot more from each other if people did speak their mind more often. You can always, you're not going to learn much if we're all on the same page. Right? You know,
And you have to be open to receiving.
And you have to not be shamed because you think differently.
Exactly. And be open to having a conversation, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to get your feelings hurt just because we disagree. Like, we can have a conversation, disagree, but I still love you at the end of the day.
Right.
Maybe I'm not gonna eat at this restaurant anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's all it is. It doesn't have to be, oh man, this dude is such a bad guy because he thought this or thought that.
And I want to let people know, just like folks from other cultures don't all think alike, we don't all think alike. Black folks don't all think alike, right? So, you know, I was watching another interview this week, and they were saying that, well, how could you stand against that? He said, yeah, I'm Black, but I have my own thoughts on these things, you know? Now, and that's, it's just so funny to me that, like, we can sit here and have a conversation and we can disagree about something. And like you said, we can keep moving. Hey, much love. I'll talk to you later. And you have to be careful which folks that you have certain conversations with, obviously, right? And we always say, you know, they say time and place. Be careful, you know, know your audience, right? The outside, you know, having company, all that kind of stuff. So that's the one thing that, you know, I just, you know, when other cultures look at you and say, well, so why do you think like that? And why does he think like that? Well, I don't know. I can't speak for him. You have to ask him.
Right.
I'm giving you my feelings on the subject and on the topics. And that's what I think, you know, we can differ and still be united in certain things, you know, I mean.
Yeah, like I think what we're united with this specifically are the victims.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that were taken advantage of, age, socioeconomically, you know, race, all that, and because they could. And so that's one thing that you can't deny, that those young girls, any victim, they need to be supported. You know what I mean? You know, was Jesse's telling the truth, or was he abusing the fact that victims should be supported? Right. Or did he have a history of not being heard, not being understood, not being liked, and it got extreme?
So he went to the extreme, right?
Do you understand the conditioning of the brain? That is dangerous.
It is.
So, I mean, it's just really something to think about. So, morality, is it a goal or a myth? Will it never happen?
Try to stay faithful. But where
You know, when all else fails, we bring out our Bible.
But you think about that, like how far have we gone to the other side of not having a moral compass? Like we all knew about these allegations from R. Kelly years and years, back to Aaliyah, right? But he was making a lot of money for a lot of people. And overlooked it.
Her mother adamantly denied it, and then it came out this week that her mother was also allegedly.
I mean, and the record label paid out a bunch of money in settlements.
Just like they did, just like the TV, the station did for Harvey Weinstein, production company.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they just like Matt Lauer, NBC did for Matt Lauer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and these national platforms, the MSNBCs, the CNNs, the Fox, like they've all done it.
Oh, I'm trying to remember who's that Fox commentator that's since been disgraced.
Tucker Carlson?
No,
Bill O'Reilly.
Bill O'Reilly. There were a lot of settlements on his behalf.
It was a machine you can just roll through Fox,
right?
And they just come.
And my problem with him, right? His whole show was based on bashing people. Yeah. Right.
Right.
Well, for the most, in my opinion, it was. And then we turn around and you that points the finger, turn that back at you.
I always tell them that, right? Like, point a finger, they're 3 point back at you. Watch what you say.
Why?
Did I not change the diapers? I told you I changed the diapers.
and that's the thing. And sometimes I'm accused of being too soft on people. I just realize some people make mistakes, right? I don't believe that everybody is their worst mistake, right? All the time. Now, I believe in patterns. Now, I believe in if you continue to show me who you are, then I will believe you. All right, yeah. But you make a mistake, I'm not going to crucify you just because I catch people where they are, right? And this has not always been the case. It's just, here we are now, 41 years old. This is just, at this point in my life, that's where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that as a country, we will ever be at a place where we can embrace racial conversation? Because there's a lot of healing that has to go on before we're actually honest with ourselves. Do you think we're at a place where we could embrace racial conversations without the majority having the fear of retaliation or loss of perceived power?
I don't think we're there yet because of still the constant injustice that's going on. I think it's always going to be a sensitive piece, man, because we're not even anywhere close to where we need to be on that end.
Yeah, well, every time people get away with it, of course. So you legally have a reason to misbehave, to put it lightly.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think, unfortunately, hate is passed down to learn trait, right? And learn behavior. And so, because we know that there's always going to be a large segment of society, of this country anyway, that does not want to own up to the fact that there have been many racial injustices in this country, and they don't want to accept it. So until that happens, which I don't think it's going to happen, because again, I think from that perspective, they're looking at it as my admission of this happening means I have to give up something, and I don't think they want to give up anything.
But it's funny they don't want to give up anything for reparations, but then you have the college scandal. So
because it's who are we helping, right? Because reparations helps
even. Yeah, it helps to reduce some of the deficit that they've imposed.
Exactly.
Right.
But a college admission scandal, which only helps them, it makes it much easier for them to do. So that's what I'm saying. Until they get to a spot where where that group is okay to say, look, man, it's been long enough. You've been trying to hold Black people down for a long time. Let's whatever. Come on. I know Andrew Yang is one of the presidential. We talked about 15 Democratic candidates for presidential election. Andrew Yang is proposing every person gets, I think, $1,000 a month, and he, Charlamagne asked him, "What do you think about reparations?" He was like, "Well, we call it reparations, but I think doing this, right?" So he's got opinions. There's people that want it and want to see it, but there's not enough. And I think the people in power are not willing to give up their power. Power is it's ego. Power makes you feel good. Power makes you feel safe. Power allows you to just have advantages that you wouldn't have if you didn't have power.
People abuse it. It's the abuse of it.
And like you said, right? Acceptance. But when you sit in a room and you can actually understand, see that the problem is people always want to be right. Okay, this is the problem, right? So the thing is, if you give up the need to want to be right, then we're okay, right? Like, because if we can sit and have a conversation, I was just telling you about the book, Brene Brown, the author, she wrote a book, Rising Strong, and I apologize for not knowing the rest of the title, but in one of the chapters of her book, she's talking about teaching in her classroom and how a white woman felt attacked in a sense because she spoke her mind. And what was after everything was kind of discussed, the students, the minority students actually felt bad for her because she broke down and cried in the classroom. And then she said, you know what? But I get it because I can choose when to be offended. You can't. I get it now. And that's like, I always tell people when I'm in an argument with somebody, I'm not trying to change your perspective. I just need you to understand mine because I'm trying to understand yours.
Right.
That's it. Right?
Brene Brown, she's powerful.
Look,
Brene Brown, Rising Strong, how the ability to reset transforms the way you live, love, parent, and lead.
That book, I finished reading it in less than a week. It was really good. It was really good. I was turned on to. We just finished reading Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. Yeah. I was watching him on Oprah Super Soul Sunday. She was the next. I went down the YouTube black hole, right? Or the OWN network black hole because I had to download the app to watch it. Oprah's good about that. But yeah, so I saw Brene Brown on there, and then I started listening to her interview, and I said, I want to check this book out because again, mindset, right? It's all about how do I get the best out of my capabilities, right? Absolutely. And that book I thought kind of helped that situation.
I think it also is a balance too, like as we're talking about, like you just said, which is greatly stated. You want people to understand your opinion, you hear theirs, and understand yours. It's a listening and a hearing piece. A lot of times people are hearing you, but they're not really listening, and that's what it comes down to. Only my opinion matters.
Somebody said, "You want to be right or you want to be happy?" Right? And I think that to your point, Antoine, being right doesn't always mean you're going to be happy. It just means you might be right. But sometimes, like you said, we have to be able to let go.
You're going to be right to the point where you hurt somebody else.
Right.
But you're right.
The easiest way for people to understand that is a relationship, right? Like, do you want, you want to be right over your wife just to be right, to hurt her or to make her feel a certain way because you're right? Or do you want to say, you know what? I get it, babe. Let's let this go. Let's keep it a happy home. All right. I understand your perspective. You understand my perspective. You appreciate it. All right. I appreciate yours. And let's move on. Let's get to a happy place. All right. And that's the key. You know,
okay to agree to disagree.
Look.
It's okay.
I'm saying. It is okay. Once we can agree to disagree, but I understand that there's, look, I see your point. I understand.
Yeah.
And there's an understanding. So it's not only agreeing to disagree, but also understanding the other person's point of view. Once we get there, then your ability to move forward and make positive, real change is what happens. That's when you get that window.
That's it.
But until, it's one thing to say, you might be right. You have a white person, a black person talking, and the white person says, you're right. Slavery happened. I don't know, whatever. It was a long time ago, though. Get over it. Right? So that's like the agreeing to disagree. But it's not understanding, right? So you're agreeing to disagree, but you're not understanding. So it's another thing when the white person says, you know what? I understand that slavery happened and that, black people in this country have been set back because not only slavery, but then Jim Crow and then legalization of slavery and everything else from the back. There's been so many things that have happened to keep black people back. And one of the better conversations I've had is when someone said, I understand that I have this privilege. this white privilege that we talk about. That some people, not only do they get offended when you talk about it, not only do they, I had a friend that was economically poor, but they were still white.
Mm-hmm.
And when I said, well, you have this privilege, right? Because you're white, they came at me like I was accusing them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, it's not an accusation. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And well, but my dad worked several jobs. I understand, right? That economically, you may not have all the money in the world. However, you have this skin color that you can't ever do that. It's going to be there, and because it's there, you have certain advantages.
Well, in the Brene Brown, in that segment of the book, that's what that was, because the white woman was saying, I'm poor. I work for everything that I have. You need to get over slavery. Like, you need to get over that. And someone pointed out, when you walk into a room, people are not going to necessarily have a certain stigma about you, right? Because you're a white woman. Mm-hmm. And until she argued it, until she really got it. Right. And it was her emotional breakdown that really caused that awakening. Right. And that's just, that's the thing.
Or the awakening caused emotional breakdown.
There you go.
I'm very intentional, because I know what it's like sometimes to walk in to a client and I might be the senior person, but they're talking to somebody else. Right. So I may lay back. Right. Because now I know who I'm working with, and if I do want to continue to work with this person. I'm also very intentional when I'm approaching people to approach who may not often get approached. Because they have now the opportunity. Sometimes they get surprised, like, oh, I'm not in charge. Yeah, but do you know the answer to my question?
Exactly.
It's a question.
That's all I care about.
Do you know the answer to my question? And I thank them both. I make sure to equal eye contact. Thank them both. Would you happen to know? Because I know they don't typically get that question. And that's something that small changes your day.
But I love as well. So you spoke about when you may be the senior person in the room and someone else is being addressed. I love when that other person that's being addressed says,
you need to talk to them.
But you know what? Antoine knows more about that because he's the head of this. He's the head of the team,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, he's the one in charge of this project.
Yeah.
Like that, the directing back to you, because there's experiments done where, there are white folks that understand the privilege, right? They get it, right?
Absolutely.
And sometimes, and I've had this experience before. Well, the bullets were coming at me, and they stepped in front of the bullets and was like, hold on. Mm-hmm. That had nothing to do with them. Mm-hmm. That was actually me. And I've seen the conversation change when they took the actual blame for the situation, which it was on them. Mm-hmm. But when they accepted that, I've seen the demeanor of the accusatory person change. And
it's like, oh, they probably didn't mean it. It happens to all of us.
Yeah. Wait a minute. But 5 seconds ago, it was all on me. But again, like you said, right? When you understand, this goes into a deeper conversation like corporate America, professional careers, all this kind of stuff. Like, we have been taught from a very young age on how to maneuver through these I don't like to call them minefields. That might be a little strong, but through these situations.
We've had strong language this whole conversation.
Yeah. But yeah, it's surprising sometimes, when it happens another way, right? Okay. Like when somebody actually stands up and says, "No, mm-hmm. that's not what happened." Excuse me, because if I say it, it's problematic, right? Yeah. So sometimes you just take those bullets until you just get tired and you're like, all right, now listen.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Also going to as we're talking about like white privilege and so forth. You'll also have on the flip side to where those African Americans that are in power or great positions and people saying, oh, it's different. Think about Russell Westbrook. We went through that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going back to racism and all that. It's still in play.
What if they never found the footage of this guy or the history, his social media history, with him making racist statements? Right. And Russell Westbrook would have gone down as some mentally ill, deranged.
This is Russell all the time.
Who's a deranged player from from Queens we used to play back in the day.
Oh, our test.
Or test, yeah.
How do we
Mental world
our
peace.
test?
Yeah.
Sorry, our test. You working on your mental health. Man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, he would have gone down there like, well, he's just another meta world peace.
Yeah.
And it has to. Listen.
So true. Look, man, they's athletes, they're so human,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's so to LeBron's response to shut up and dribble. Has been brilliant, right? I mean, and he's still doing work to further that, but we're so quick to be that you're that athlete, you get paid. Somebody, Wendy Williams had a comment on Russell Westbrook this week that was, look, you're making millions of dollars, whatever, deal with it. But my response is, yeah, you might make millions of dollars a year, but that doesn't give you the right to come at me and just,
You wouldn't go to anybody's place of employment.
Exactly.
Because understand it's an employment contract.
Yes.
You wouldn't go to anybody's job and light them up.
No.
And I explained to someone the other day, I said, I'm a grown man before I'm a businessman. So please watch how you approach me. Right? Because they were a little disrespectful in a sense. I wasn't saying that in a disrespectful manner, but I just needed that individual to understand the language you're using right now.
And you have to boss up. And, for my sisters in business, being a woman with a strong voice, it gets misconstrued so many times. Just like being a black man with a strong voice, that you're an angry black man, angry black woman, you're this, you're that. And I'm like, you have to remove that visual layer of skin, and it's a person. And anybody would be angry in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody would protect their family in this situation. Anybody would protect their integrity in that situation. Anybody would protect their jobs in that situation. And that's what we're missing. The fact that people are people. Like, I feel like with us, if you look at our phone book, if we go out and you see who shows up for us, it's so diverse and so beautiful. That's why I love we throw events, because you can't come into an event, from McKinney Brands and say, well, it's all this or all that. You know what it is? It's all strong people. It's all family people. It's all business people. It's all go-getters. It's all world changers. It's all game changers. You know what I mean? And that to me is more important than the color.
It's all love, right? I mean, they show up on the strength of us.
Right.
And so, love conquers all, but the type of people that we tend to surround ourselves with. And
surround our children with.
Yeah. We're giving them examples, right? I just had a conversation yesterday with my son when we were talking about, we went to the car wash, and the guys that were drawing the car off at the end, he's like, we don't talk to them because they're just cleaners. I said, no. I said, we absolutely talk to them. We talk to them because they're cleaners. We talk to the manager. We talk to anybody that we see, because we treat everybody the same, regardless of what position you are. I understand that, I'm going to treat the janitor just like I'm going to treat the CEO and everybody in the middle.
Everybody.
I was like, because you just never know who's who when you're walking in the street.
Because everybody's a person.
Exactly.
And that's funny. It's funny because he's thinking a lot this weekend, because what did he say to me? It'll come back to me, but he said something about
he's 5. Yeah, he's 5.
Oh, it was about you, actually, because he referenced you as Antoine. I was like, no, that'll be Mr. Antoine, or you can call him Mr. Watts. I was like, whatever you're comfortable with. And he goes, but you said Antoine. I said, I did. I'm an adult. And I had to have a conversation with him about respect. And Mr. Antoine wasn't born that size. Mr. Antoine paid his dues to become an adult, and you have to pay your dues into adulthood. And, he was like, okay. And then it's taken him a while. So then I had to kind of switch to more of, we're talking as friends to authority. Let me tell you what you're not going to do. So he'll learn as time goes on why it's important to have that demarcation of respect. And I think that's part of spoiled America, because I do have somebody else in my life, and that person's child calls me by my first name. And that disgusts me to the point where I tune out. They're like, oh, didn't you hear so-and-so talking to you? I did, but I won't respond because that's just not how I was raised. And if you don't have that respect for elders or what for people know, I mean, it's just like in business. This is your price. Am I paying you for your price, or am I paying you for the 20 years of knowledge that you baked into finding this solution? I'm paying you. I'm giving you respect out of the 40 years that you have on this earth that you've put out there. And I'm trying to teach them these lessons early, because you're not going to go into any court system. You're not going to go because you did not have the respect to know?
You know, I actually, some years back, I had a slight issue with LeBron. So David Stern was the commissioner of the NBA at the time. And I remember LeBron addressing the crowd and I believe it was the NBA All-Star game. And he said, you know, David has done a lot for the league. And I had a problem with that because that's Commissioner Stern.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but someone else, when we had that conversation, they said, yeah, but, you know, he's kind of like a peer to LeBron. I said, no, he's the commissioner of the NBA. He's not a peer. All right. But he was like, well, he's a man. Just like, again, look, it's about titles. It's about respect position, right? We always say, you know, I don't believe this, but you can say you don't have to respect a man, but respect the position. You don't have to respect a woman, but respect the position. Like, you have to, right? And it's tough sometimes in this climate we're in right now to respect certain positions. But again, that's what it is. So, but, you know, it wasn't a huge deal. It was just something that I was like, wow. It caught my attention immediately because that's not how I was raised.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little different, you know?
To me, it's spoiled America.
Yeah.
They think they could hey, look, to whom are we speaking?
Yeah.
You know, like it gets it gets me fired up.
Right.
And it maybe more now that I'm a parent than it bothered me as much before, you know? Because I never thought that people, if I were in the room, they would expect me to make the adult decision. You know what I mean? Right. Something about you like, oh, they're waiting for me to, you know? And you're like, okay, well, if I'm going to commandeer that respect, I'm due that respect.
And you spoke about Russell Westbrook and just athletes in general, right? And people say, well, you get paid all that money. You should be a role model. All right, well, one, I'm paid to play basketball. Now, I believe adults should be role models regardless, right? Regardless, right? I believe adults should be role models. Excuse me, because you don't know who's watching you. You don't know what child is watching you. You don't know what child doesn't have that at home or have access to that. But you have a responsibility. Right?
People got off of that because you used to be able to, like, your neighbors could correct you growing up.
Oh, man,
right?
Yeah.
But now, you can't talk to my child like that. You're like, but and then now we're at a point like you don't know your neighbors the same. You don't know their kids the same. It's insane to me.
It used to be a village, right?
Yeah.
We say it takes a village.
And you wonder if you can get back like that. Like every industry is cyclical. It's going to come back. It's going to come back. I see parenting going. I don't see it coming back to.
It's going further and further.
Yeah, and we're so busy that it's so low. Respect is so low on the totem pole.
Yeah.
And instead, we help them break the law and do unethical college entrance things.
I have been at our neighborhood car wash down the street and seen a child speaking to a parent out of pocket, and I'm sorry, man. I apologize. I know this is your child, but this is a learning moment. Okay, excuse me, sir. What you shouldn't do is speak to your mother like that. And, you know, and it was so funny because her initial reaction was kind of like, who is this man talking to me? Right. But when she understood what I was saying, she was cool with it. Now, not every parent's going to be like that.
No.
And he was just so blatantly disrespectful that I really didn't care, right? No. But, you know, he looked at me kind of crazy. But then I asked him a question because, you know, you have to be careful. When you talk to children, you really have to understand their children, right? Yeah. So I said what I said to him, and I said, so what's your name? Tells me his name. I said, okay, now let me ask you a question. What makes you think it's okay to talk to your mother like that? And he had no answer.
I did it last week.
Yeah, he had no answer. But that's the answer, right? She let him get away with it. Yeah. So it was like, you know, your children will only do what you allow them to do.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And, you know, you can still do that, but you do have to pick your spots but I was ready for whatever feedback I got from that situation. In that moment, I was. I absolutely.
Everything's learned, right?
Yeah, man.
It goes back to the parents and, you know, even the parents. I mean, it's just like, I don't want to say tradition, but it's just how it starts at the time.
Mm-hmm.
How the parents raised. You know?
When she got in her car, like she turned around, she said, "Thank you." I said, "Man, not a problem." I said, "Because one day he's not going to be talking to you. He's going to be talking to somebody else that's not going to tolerate that,
Right.
and then that's a larger issue, right?" And she kind of thought, she's like, "You're right." And she got in her car. Now she may not ever think about that again, but
She won't forget it.
she won't forget it. Now my thing was, I wish her husband might have been there, because I wonder when she relays that.
Would you have said
information.
anything if her husband were there?
Oh, if that child was that disrespectful like he was,
Mhm.
I absolutely would have in that moment.
Oh, you different.
I'm different. Because look, in certain moments,
all the smoke.
I'm ready for whatever. Because because I'm ready for whatever. Like, if I wasn't, I wouldn't open my mouth. Right in that moment. But I'm intelligent enough to know when. Because I always tell people I try to have those moments in mind, so I know what my reaction may be when that person reacts to me. So
I was always the one who went back. Get my dad, like one time I was filling up my car with gas and the attendant made me mad. I was like, go home, get my dad. My dad always had his coat on. I was like, you know what? Let you stay home. Because you never know. And I feel like, because I was like, oh, right? He was talking to me.
Oh, you got me out of here, man.
Yeah.
Those people are crazy.
People are crazy. Back in the day, you used to, if it was gonna come to it, it would come to their hands.
Right. That's why I even tell him. I was like, be careful how you honk your horn, because you have to come home.
Yeah.
It's tough. Road rage.
It's tough, man. It's so many different things are just so different now. We hear our parents say how their time was back then, and
every generation says
and I was like,
that's how you know you're old, when this music, this mumble rap.
Yeah, like, what is this?
Yeah.
Disgusting.
Let me play Biggie for you.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a real hip.
I was in Publix the other day, and this dude had not only his pants down, but his boxers were halfway down. Yeah. And I walked past him. I said, "Hey, bro, hike those up."
Yeah, man.
And he kind of looked at me like, I said, "Yeah, nobody ever gonna see your ass like." Like, hey.
Even as a youngin', I still didn't rock myself. You know why? Because my folks would know my place.
And nobody's parenting these days.
Right. And I just felt like, you know what? I guess at a certain moment in my life, I realized, you know what? I know what they say about kids who do this, and I gotta act a certain way.
And you also know that habit came out of the prison culture.
Yeah. Right. And see, a lot of these kids don't even know that.
They think it's cool.
Right? Yeah. And that's the thing, it's just that what the perceptions are, and I'm not giving you any reason. Right? Like,
But when the older generation was coming down, maybe a bad example with Mr. Bill Cosby, Dr. Bill Cosby, when he was saying it, remember, he was kind of chastising the youth,
It's always in the approach.
It's always in the approach,
right?
and that's the thing.
Yeah.
He has some valid points.
He did.
I can support the
it
point.
was just the way that he decided to save them, which was the issue.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that you have to be mindful of too, is what am I saying?
Right.
And how am I getting that point across?
Right. Absolutely. I think you guys think that we're in a good spot to move on to the next segment. Yeah. All right. So I think we had a rich conversation about Spoiled America. I don't think we solved the world's problems, but we definitely highlighted them.
We put some on the table, that's for sure.
Yeah, So a lot of things that we talk about, they're just hairy. They're sticky and they're hairy. So it's going to take us a little bit to get through them, but that's what we're here for, to spark conversation. And I like this group because I always think, when was the last time I was in an environment where somebody challenged my ideas? Mm-hmm. So that's part of what we're about here. So let's move on to the hot seat. So the hot seat, I'll explain it to you guys. The hot seat is going to be rapid questions. There'll be 6 rapid questions. So for the 3 of you, you should end up with 2 each. Mm-hmm. Whoever answers the first one becomes first. And then the person next to them is second, third, and then we kind of repeat. So, you could have if you have one question, first question, you're going to have the 4th question, that kind of thing.
How long do we have to?
Well, it's a rapid question. So I want it to be rapid answers.
First thing that comes to our head.
Oh,
if you take too long, I will cut you off. If I think that you're being a little honest, I'll go, I'm like, clean it up, because I know the truth, So we'll start with there. So this is our inaugural rapid question round. I think it's going to go pretty well. All right, everybody's ready?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
All right, question 1. Are you a hunter or gatherer, and why?
I'm a hunter because I don't like waiting for anything. I just like to go forward. It can be considered a bad or good thing, but at this time in my life, it's all forward. Yeah.
Learned behavior. Okay. Next question. Go to B. What lesson have you learned since adulthood that you would share with your younger high school self?
You know what? Be confident in yourself and know who you are, and stay true to yourself at all times.
Mr. Watts, what advice would you give a previous boss?
Oof. Seriously, a little bit. Just watch how you talk to people. Address people appropriately. Always try to stay professional, because that does not always happen. And really, just treat people like people.
Mm-hmm.
That's really it.
Rio, when hiring someone or looking to work with a partner, what's the most important attribute you look for? They don't know the questions ahead of time.
Yeah, we
so
know.
they will never know the questions ahead of time because that just makes it more interesting.
Integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Integrity is going to be top of that.
Yeah. So, I had a follow-up question. I'm sorry. I almost got us to wrap the question around. Okay. B, do you create backup plans or are you a full steam ahead person?
Man, situational. I like, I want to be full steam ahead, but I think in my mind, I want to be full steam ahead. In my heart, I probably make that.
Because you're a dad.
I'm a dad and I got kids, right? When I was 20, I was full steam ahead.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I have kids, I got to have a backup plan. They say, you have a plan B, you never have a plan A, which to a degree, I do agree with that. However, when you got mouths that are depending on you to make good decisions, you have to make good decisions.
Right. Good stuff. Final question of our rapid question round. Antoine, ready?
Yes.
What is the most interesting thing that we would learn about you that's not on your resume?
I would be if I hit the lottery tomorrow, I would be a school teacher. I believe in young minds. I believe in young people. And yes, I am a for-profit human being, but that is really, I would be a school teacher in a heartbeat.
How many good people are discouraged because of the teacher's salary?
Yeah.
Educator is so prestigious, but money's not everything. But man, does it help?
Yeah, it's not everything, but Les Brown said it's up there with oxygen.
Okay.
It's necessary.
It's necessary.
It's necessary.
So today's Many Hands podcast is sponsored by Personal Injury Professionals. Hit them up at www.pipinjury.com. And they were founded to assist the victims of accidents. They're dedicated to helping those involved in an accident get their lives back on track. They will help you find the legal and medical attention that you deserve to recover from your injuries and losses. So our next closeout, we're going to do a follower shout out. We're on Instagram. You could catch us on Many Hands Podcast. At that handle, again, Many Hands Podcast, also the same handle on Facebook. But our follow shout out goes to Hued, HUED CO, and they followed us on Instagram, and I got lost in that rabbit hole. It's a portal to research Black doctors, and I found it very fascinating. They're also doing a tech summit coming up, so check them out. I was very intrigued. I'll leave you guys off with a little inspirational quote. Anybody have any final words before I get into that?
It's always a pleasure. Great content, great subject matter, and looking forward to the next.
Great people. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, I just love this group, man. You really have to surround yourself with people that challenge you to do better, and this group does that for me.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So what I want to leave everybody with is when you're out there working to become a masterpiece, make sure you master peace. Many hands make light work. Let's get to work, fellas.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And the question had me sweating a little bit. What you